From in the beginning to the musical apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What? I'm your host, Mike Wiseman. Does Satan have a big ego? Most Christians believe that their invisible bad guy got kicked out of heaven for this very thing. If Satan is supposed to be this egotistical monster, would it not stand to reason that he would want to make it a point to take credit for his work? There's mass murder, torture, and rape every day, and yet the majority of the monsters that carry out these atrocities never claim to be influenced by the Christian bad guy. Christians believe that Satan wants all the glory for himself. He's selfish, greedy, and prideful. They will tell you that the very character of Satan is evil and sinful, and therefore atrocities are obvious proof of Satan's influence. Should it not then follow that we would see countless atrocities committed in the name of this narcissistic ruler of the planet? Reality directly opposes the idea that Satan is an egotistical supervillain. Satan is very rarely blamed or credited for any of the countless heinous acts committed. Strangely enough, though, tons of the natural disasters have been attributed to the loving Christian deity. Many will assert their invisible friend is mad at the people of Earth for doing shit he doesn't like. For example, loving someone who happens to be of the same sex. Even Satanists hold a more humanistic, empathetic view than many of the self-proclaimed Christians or even their own deity. However, the narcissistic character of Yahweh wants all the glory for himself, John 8:50. He wants everyone to bow down and worship him, Isaiah 45:23. If you choose not to worship him, he will send you to a special place full of fire and death and torture forever and ever. The being Christians worship is more of a monster than the bad guy they made up. The loving Christian deity gets so mad at people for disobedience that he lashes out irrationally. But when Satan does something, Yahweh apparently just turns the other cheek. The inconsistencies and absurdities continue to pile up. Why would anyone trust such a flawed doctrine? Let's start the show.
Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with? Okay, so it took you reading the Bible to realize that those things were bad for you?
Yeah, it actually did. I
Couldn't
didn't
figure this out on your own?
No, Ted Bundy could be redeemed. God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Yahweh sets up a whole system in the Old Testament where you slaughter animals just so he's able to forgive you.
Today's special guest is Christian apologist David Wolcott. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Appreciate it, man. So why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit about what you do?
So I'm, as you said, I'm a Christian apologist. What that basically means is I look for the evidence and arguments for why Christianity is true. I research those. And then my particular focus is on helping the church, helping everyday Christians understand why Christianity is true, helping them address some of their doubts, answer some of their questions, and then helping give them a more intellectually robust reason for why they believe the things they believe.
Awesome. So what is like the biggest question you hear? What is the biggest question you get asked from Christians?
I would say one of the biggest questions is related to the disconnect between modern society emphasizing the focus on self versus Christianity emphasizing on truth. And so what we end up with is people being told that what you want to do with your life, like, be the best version of yourself you can be, but separating that from, were you meant to be anything else? Were you created to be anything else? Or is it just whatever you arbitrarily decide is the best version of yourself? And that's one of the more common issues that I deal with today.
Thank you for that. So
yeah,
definitely want to dive into that a little bit here. So best version of yourself is not, according to you, not necessarily what you're meant to be.
Well, let's take this by a practical example. Okay. We have Ursula, Jafar, and of course now my mind is blank on other Disney villains. But like we have plenty of examples in movies and plenty of examples of people in real life who went off to be whatever it is they wanted to be. Now, I don't have a problem with the idea itself of going for who you uniquely are.
Okay.
But that needs to be tethered to a semblance of reality. That just because you want something doesn't mean that's something that's right to want. I mean, Hitler went after what he really wanted, and we all agree that what Hitler wanted was wrong.
Well, let's back up a little bit. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The best part, being the best we can be, is being the best we can be. I would say Hitler wasn't being the best he can be. He's harming people, and when we harm people, that's not really beneficial and not being better. So,
Yeah.
being the best we can be versus what we're meant to be. Why is that different? Why is being the best we can be different than what we're meant to be?
It's not. I may not have clarified this initially. It's not the being the best you can be, where best is tied to something external. It's being the best that you want to be. Because what we want, as I demonstrated with like Ursula and Jafar and Hitler, what they wanted is they pursued what they wanted. That doesn't mean what they wanted is right. So we can
agree that what we want to do, if it causes harm, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, we need to define it according to reality. We need to have it line up with reality. We need to have it line up with morality, with objective morality. Just because we want something doesn't mean it's right. I think there's cases where you need to look at what harm is. Like when doctors perform surgery, that often hurts. It's for a larger goal.
Right.
And so I hesitate to make a blanket statement about it. Well, if harm is caused, then that's bad. But generally, I agree. If you do something that's bad for someone, no, that's not what would be best.
I wouldn't call surgery harm. I mean, that's beneficial. Yes, we're cutting and we're doing that, but all of that is beneficial. So that's not really harm in a way. I would say harm is something that's more permanent, more disadvantageous to people, as opposed to a surgery, which is helpful.
As long as we add that qualifier, I agree.
Gotcha. Okay. So as far as, man, there's so many things. Tethered to reality. I love this. This is great. Thank you. Man. Woo. Well, I guess we can kind of go with the causing harm part. Thanks. The causing harm part. So as far as if we agreed, if it's disadvantageous to somebody, causing them that harm is not good, right? It's not a good thing.
I would say generally, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to back this up just a whole lot here. The Bible. What is the Bible to you?
The Bible is God's revelation through 40-some different human authors over the course of 1,500 years, which, as many secular historians have noted, provides us the human rights that we use today.
The Bible provides us the human rights that we use today.
Generally, numerous secular scholars and historians have noted that, yes.
Like all of it or just parts of it?
When you take all of it as a whole, yes.
All of it as a whole?
So one of the common misunderstandings about the Bible is that it's a magic rule book where everything in there is always applicable to all people at all times. And you can just pick a sentence out of the Bible and boom, that's for us today. And that's not the way you read the Bible.
Well, I sure hope you don't do that. We're all going to jail if we're doing that.
One of the great books that I recommend for addressing that is How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth by Gordon Fee and Douglas Stewart. It's a great book that addresses these genres, the time periods, and what's going on with the Bible. So we do need to take account. Some passages in the Bible are simply descriptive. It's simply describing things that happened. And there's no command included at all for anyone. It's literally just, for example, a historical narrative. Other things are commands for specific people at specific time. Some things have the more general command for all of us. And so we do need to take into account the context and the genre, just like with any other book. I can pull out my copy of Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion, and there's some sentences in there where he says God exists. Clearly, he doesn't believe God exists. We need to look at the context. And so when we look at the Bible in full context, yes, we end up with these are predominantly where we get the human rights that we have today.
Well, we can't look at it in the full context and get our human rights from there, because in full context, it's all about blood magic. It's all about sacrificing something so that he can forgive people, so that people don't go to hell. That's not what we do in society. I don't know where the love yourself is, love your neighbor as yourself. That's a good one, but that's not the whole Bible. Definitely not the whole Bible. Yahweh does not like his neighbors, and half of it wipes them out, and the other half, and then the other half of the neighbors that don't like him, he's going to send them to hell. So not very neighborly of him. I don't see that as a good source of morals. I don't see that as a source of our society, base of our society.
When you see that as a preparation for what God's ultimate plan is, which he reveals in Genesis 3, we start to see even those ritualistic laws in the Old Testament as demonstrating a greater truth that will eventually be
ritualistic laws that demonstrate a bigger truth. How about just giving the truth? Why slaughter things and kind of hint at things as opposed to just giving us the truth? Wouldn't that be a better way to go about things instead of killing everything and then kind of guessing at things?
If I were omniscient and able to know absolutely everything, I might be able to answer that. But from my limited human perspective,
it doesn't make sense, right? With our limited human perspective, it just doesn't make sense to do that.
But with my limited human perspective, there's the question of, one, is it true? Because whether I understand it or not has no bearing on whether it's true or not. But two, if it is true that there is a omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent God who revealed himself through Scripture, if that is true, and in order to be properly rational, we have to consider that as we have to consider the possibility that the Bible is true when we examine it.
Right. I considered it, and I considered it, and I threw in common sense and rationality and logic, and I'm like, hey, that's not true.
But why do we have so many secular scholars who use the same common sense, the same rationality, and come to a different conclusion than you do?
Well, I don't know, man. I'm not those scholars. I don't even know which scholars you're talking about. I don't even know which scholars you're talking about. Which scholars you're talking about that are secular that say the Bible is a good source of morals?
Let's start with Tom Holland. Speaking of Paul's letters, compacted into this very small amount of writings was almost everything that explains the modern world.
Tom International Holland? Like Spider-Man?
No, the agnostic historian.
I don't know who that guy is. I only know the Spider-Man.
Rebecca McLaughlin told you about him last year.
Who?
Rebecca McLaughlin told you about him last year.
Oh, that was last year, and that was holy cow, man. I don't know. Cool. That's cool. That's cool.
I'm behind on all of my.
I don't know him, but I'm not him. I'm not him. And I'm telling you the disgusting things in here. I'm not getting my morals from that. I don't think you are either. I don't think the world is either. I don't think we're getting our morals from them. The good people that are not stoning people to death, slaughtering children out of jealousy, we're not getting our morals from the Bible. We don't require bloodshed for forgiveness. We don't get our morals from your God.
Have you studied the French Revolution at all?
I don't know what that has to do with it. Explain it. Go ahead.
So the French Revolution and the American Revolution happened at very similar times. The French Revolution took a secular stance to morality and government. The American Revolution took a biblical stance to morality and government. The French Revolution assumed that if you create a good society, people are naturally good and we will have good things out of it.
I think I found the problem. I found the problem, David. What is biblical morality? What is that to you? What
biblical morality, Jesus summed it up greatly, that the fulfillment of the 613 laws in the Old Testament are met by loving God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And I would highlight mind. It's not supposed to be mindless religion. We're supposed to think about it, which means it's not going to be just handed to us on a silver platter. We need to take the time to understand this and wrestle with this. So loving God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength.
So loving God is something that we should that makes us moral. Loving God makes us moral. Why does that make us moral, David?
If we are supposed to be people of love, which I think you would agree on, we should be loving everyone. Now, loving doesn't always mean agreeing with. Loving doesn't always mean liking. But we should have a posture of love rather than hate in as much as possible, especially with morally good people. So
how do we know he's morally good? Because to me, he's a documented child killer. We have documentation of him killing children. And right off the bat, I can tell you, people who kill kids aren't good people, especially for the reasons he does it. He does it out of jealousy.
Do you apply that to abortion?
Abortion. We are mere human beings, first off. This is a God we're talking about, your source of morals. So let's step away from people who are,
okay,
sinful.
But we need to make sure
let's go to the God who's the all-loving source of your morals. Let's focus on that.
Let's be consistent. Let's be consistent.
Why?
If you say killing children is moral or is immoral, then that applies to us too, right?
Same goes for you. Let's say if it's immoral
Okay.
for people, why is it not immoral for God?
So one, God created all life. God is
I
the creator
create
of life.
children.
He has
Does
a
that mean
very
I can
different
wipe them out?
God has a, no, you
Well,
have
God can.
intercourse.
He's
That's-
my source of
you have
morals.
God is the, within Christian mythology,
Thank you,
within Christian
Jesus.
theology.
I will now drown my children because they disobeyed me. I will now follow what my God has done. This is my source of morals. This is my loving father figure, someone to look up to. I should do as God does. Am I wrong?
Mhm. Yeah, mostly because God is God. We are not God. We never will be God.
Should we
So
be
there
like
are
God?
there are some things by definition that any
Should
authority
we be
figure
like
can
God,
do
David?
that the people under them can't do.
Should
So
we be like
we
God?
can't this gets to a bigger issue. Take
Should we
police
not
officers.
strive to be like God? Should we not strive to be more like your moral center, the jealous guy who
Like
drowns
who-
children?
like
Should we
what
not
God
strive
told us to be, like what God told us to be.
like him?
Again, take the example of police officers. There are certain things that police officers can do
Uh-huh.
that we as regular citizens cannot do, and it's because of the fact that they are a police officer. There's certain
So they can
authority
kill
that
children.
they have.
So it's
we
okay if a
don't.
cop
No, I'm
kills
not-
a kid.
No, I'm not saying
Give me
they
a
can kill
rice.
kids. I'm
That's
saying
okay. Is that
they
okay?
can pull people over. They can arrest people. We can't arrest people. So
We can actually. It's called
simple-
citizen's arrest, David. We can also be
it's citizen's
deputized.
arrest within okay, if we're deputized, that's different. We've been given that authority. Citizen's arrest is
So
a very
God has
limited,
deputized me to
application.
be like God. Can I now drown children out of jealousy?
God hasn't done that.
Kill children out of jealousy?
Who's killing any children out of jealousy?
Can I kill kids out of jealousy if God does it and he deputizes me?
God did that?
You're saying God did not kill any children out of jealousy?
You're saying he did. That's your claim. I'm waiting for you to back up your
Correct.
claim.
I'm asking you, are you denying this claim?
You're making the claim. The way logic
Okay,
works.
so you're
is
denying the
person
claim.
who
Thank
makes
you
the
for
claim.
helping me out there.
No,
So children, let's go into
that's not
children.
the same thing.
Hosea 9. Remember this story?
Let me go ahead and pull up my Bible and take a look. While you're
Ephraim.
at it, are you
Ephraim?
familiar with Jürgen Habermas, the philosopher?
I don't know. You keep name dropping, man. I'm just talking about me and you.
I'm just wondering why people who professionally study these subjects for decades seem to come to a very different conclusion than you do.
It's called biased.
And
It's called biased.
they're
David.
atheists. So atheists are more biased than you are?
I don't know what these atheists you're talking about. I don't know what they're saying. I didn't read their books, David.
so-
I'm telling you, as an atheist myself, I don't get my morals from a documented child killer. And I highly doubt that these atheists are saying, yes, I get my morals from the God of the Bible. I highly doubt that.
In your book, let me pull up a quote from your book.
Well, my book.
Yeah.
Cool.
I bought it and I read it because that's what an intelligent person does is if they're going to engage with someone, they read it. That's why I need to ask why there's so many atheist scholars that you're
I
deciding
don't know,
not to read.
David. I don't know about them. I'm not talking about them.
I know. No, but that's what I'm highlighting is if they're
telling you I
coming
don't care.
to such, I mean, if
tell
you
you-
don't care, that's fine.
I don't.
But if they're doing the research that you're not doing
Cool.
and they're coming to different conclusions,
Point me a quote
then
that says the
why-
God of the Bible is a center for good morals.
universalistic egalitarianism from which sprang the ideals of freedom and a collective life and solidarity, the
not my
autonomous
book.
conduct of life. It's not from your book. This is from Jürgen
Oh.
Habermas. You have to quote. The autonomous conduct of life and emancipation, the individual morality of conscience, human rights and democracy is the direct legacy of the Judaic ethic of justice and the Christian ethic of love. This legacy, substantially unchanged, has been the object of continual critical appropriation and reinterpretation. To this day, there is no alternative to it. And in light of the current challenges of a post-national constellation, we continue to draw on the substance of this heritage. Everything else is just idle postmodern talk.
Great. That
Now,
doesn't
again,
say
so-
that
so my
Yahweh is a
question
good
is-
source of morals. That does not say that.
He's talking about the legacy that came from the Bible that was developed by Scripture.
Okay.
So
That
again,
doesn't say
brings up
God
my-
of the Bible is a good source of morals. That does not say that.
Does something have to explicitly say exactly one
That's
thing?
actually what I was
certain
looking
words?
for, though, David. That's like specifically what I was looking for.
I'm sorry, but I can't really support such a hyper literalistic wooden interpretation. That
Right,
sounds
because they're not talking about the
extremely
God of the
fundamentalist.
Bible, David. They're not talking about the God of the Bible. They're talking about the
No,
love your neighbor crap in there. That's what they're talking about. And you know what, David? That shit
Are they?
comes back even farther than Christianity.
Does it?
Even farther than Judaism, Hinduism, 3200 BC.
Have you read those original?
One should always treat others as they themselves wish to be treated. That's before Judaism said it. And then there's
Who is that?
Hinduism. Hinduism, you know,
That's a
the
direct quote
oldest
from Hinduism?
religion. The oldest religion. Look it up. You're faster than I am. I've just got it quoted here.
Because
You're like on the spot, man. I love it.
In Yuval Harari's *Sapiens*, he argues that Hammurabi's, which has some variant of the Golden Rule, also specifically divides people up into classes and makes different laws according to what class you're in. So there's a lot more context to this, because if we look through history, you say Hinduism has that quote. Okay, that's great. Don't get me wrong. I haven't read their text yet. I haven't studied Hinduism. What we do know is Hinduism still had their class system up until, ironically.
That doesn't matter though. So we go to the Bible. You go Judaism with the whole love your neighbor
hold
thing.
Hold up.
Where does God say to get your slaves from?
Okay.
The neighbors that you love?
Consistent in this? Okay.
I'm being consistent. We established that the Buddhism had
let's look at slavery. So
Hinduism.
Would it be fair to say that your position is that the Bible supports slavery?
We're not even getting into that. I'm talking about.
You just brought up slavery.
Yes, I did.
You just said, where do you get your slaves?
Right, because it's the whole love your neighbor thing. The whole love your neighbor thing. Okay. Correct? We cannot love our neighbor if we're enslaving them, right?
Do you have a credit card? Because if you do, then according to the Bible, you're
holy shit, that's totally different, David. David, would you like to be my slave for a day?
So that's my point.
Would you like to be a slave for a day, David?
Under what definition of slavery?
My definition of slavery. The biblical one, where you can't go free for years.
So that's
and then they'll trick you by giving you a wife. They'll steal you from your city. Actually, your neighbor.
There's a law against kidnapping.
That doesn't matter when it comes to slavery. They kidnap women from their cities. Holy cow!
So the law against kidnapping in the Bible, specifically related to slavery, doesn't apply to kidnapping.
So you're telling me when it says kidnapping, it means slavery?
Do you know about that law?
I do know about that law, and I'm asking you a very specific question. Do you think when they say kidnapping, they mean slavery?
That's a significant part of it.
That's a significant difference, Dave.
If you ignore the context, yes. If you ignore the context, absolutely.
Remember that one time? No, we won't get into that. Yahweh sent him into slavery. Sorry, I'm just reading here. It's really funny. He was so mad at them. So let's see. Go slaves. Where are you going to get your slaves from? There it is. Leviticus 25, 44 through 46. Now, is this or is this not?
Bible.
That's
not in the slave Bible.
It's not in the slave Bible?
Why did the slavers take that out of the slave Bible?
I have no idea what you're talking about. We're discussing a verse. Let's discuss
one of the problem.
You're male,
and the fundamental problem is you don't understand context.
The nations around you. Are the nations around you your neighbors?
I'd have to look into what those nations specifically are.
And of course they are. The nations that are around you are your neighbors. Correct?
The ones who were killing babies for 400 years? Those nations?
No, your male and female slaves are to come from your nations around you. I'm going to enslave my neighbor. That is not treating your neighbor as you want to be treated, David. That's my point. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's also out of context.
How is it out of context, David?
All of the Torah laws from Exodus through Number, I always forget which is the last one, Numbers.
Whatever it is.
All of them are bounded within the, you were slaves in Egypt for 400 years. Don't do to the other nations what was done to you. All of them are bounded by that. So if you want to take a specific sentence out of there, take it out of context and say nothing else.
The whole damn verse. Let's read the whole damn verse. From them, you may buy slaves. You will also buy some of the temporary residents living among you. That's not neighbor. That's your house. That's your city.
Reading one sentence isn't context.
I can keep going, man. It's slavery.
You need
You're
to
buying
read the whole
slaves
book
from your neighbors. Your neighbors are
You
your
need to read the whole
slaves.
book.
I read the whole book, man. Okay, what was that quote you wanted to quote from my book? What was that?
Where was that?
Tethered to reality. Remind me to come back to that.
Now of course it doesn't want to pull up.
Oh no, you're the fastest one. I'm super slow.
Yeah, I try to be, but that doesn't mean the computer always gives me what I want.
True. Mm-hmm.
Okay, come on. This is one that I thought I'd pulled up beforehand, and for some reason I didn't have it pulled up. About the author. They fail. Trying to remember if it's in the outro or the last chapter. But you mentioned specifically about if we go in with our biases, then it's basically what was a confirmation bias. If you go in assuming the consequence, you're going to be looking at all of the evidence from the assumption you've already made. And now, of course, I can't find it. Go figure.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll figure
but
that
do
out later.
you remember that quote?
Yeah.
More or less.
So, maybe I don't remember, man.
One of the unintended. Here we go. When you start
good.
with a predetermined outcome, your research and findings become an attempt to fit the premise you started with. So one of my specializations is something I'm developing called Sudoku apologetics. And it's based on the game. Okay. But what I'm trying to do is when I analyze arguments, when I analyze evidence, I look at it in light of the whole picture, because oftentimes when we try to solve a puzzle, we just look at, do the two pieces fit together, and that's it. Whereas with Sudoku, you have to look at the whole puzzle. Just because these two pieces fit together doesn't mean all of them do. Okay. So when I take challenging issues like, okay, there's verses about slavery in the Bible. Those are challenging verses. Those are, things that we have to wrestle with. And I have to look at, okay, so one, what is the full context in the Bible? But two, how does that play out across all of human history? The Bible, those verses in particular were written 4,000 years ago. They were written in a different language and a very different culture. One of the incidental issues with that is growing up, especially in America, we're taught about the transatlantic slave trade. And it's good that we're taught about it. It's entirely wrong what happened there. It was Christians that stopped it. It was Christians ripping out 90% of the Old Testament who were doing it. But as applies to us, that's the slave Bible. It's part of the research you should really be doing. But part of the consequence of that, or the unintended consequence of teaching kids that, and only that, is we get the impression that that's the full sum definition of slavery.
Wow.
And it's not. The word slave has been used for 6,000 plus years through human history to mean a lot of different things.
Why do you
have some of those things?
I thank you for that.
Okay.
Why do you feel the need to defend these horrible verses? Why do you have to find excuses for them?
No, I feel the need that we need to properly understand what it is before deciding whether it needs to be defended or not. Again, case in point, in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, it says the borrower is slave to the lender. So that's one of the biblical definitions of slavery. Now,
do you think slavery in the Bible was good? Let's just start there.
Depending on when it was. Depending on what it was. Let me back up. I don't think the word slave is the problem. I think the problem is what happens within different instances of slavery.
Do you think people wanted to be slaves? There we go. Did people want to be slaves in the Bible?
In some cases, those people did. One of the practices they had was
which one? Which Bible verse shows us? Which Bible verse shows us somebody glad to be a slave? Somebody enjoying themselves
if I
as a
remember
slave.
correctly, Ebenezer, Abraham's slave.
He loved it. He loved being a slave.
Somehow he had a good enough relationship with Abraham that Abraham entrusted him with immense wealth and sent him off on a multi-week journey in order to get a bride for his son.
Okay, so he had to go do things. That doesn't mean he had a good time doing it, though. Did he have a good time being a slave? Did he enjoy it?
If he didn't enjoy it, he would have left. He had all the wealth to go.
He was a slave. You can't leave.
He couldn't. He was gone.
Then he's not a slave. He can't leave the servitude of his master. Can he not?
Or
there's no or. Can he not?
Your understanding of slavery is in question.
David, just explain it to me then. Can he or can he not leave?
I'm trying to.
Can he not leave the servitude of his master?
He had the full physical ability to go do that. He was
able to leave as a. So then he wasn't a slave. David, He was
under your
he was
definition of slave.
employed. That's called employment.
But a lot of the biblical term for slave, or a lot of the biblical use of the word slave is employment.
Okay,
That's
so
one of the
not one of
challenges.
these people had a
Some
good time.
cases
The
it is, some
Egyptians
cases it
enslaved
isn't.
them for 400 years. They did not have a good time. They pissed off Yahweh. Yahweh sold them
And-
back into slavery. They did not have a good time. I don't see anybody having a good time as a slave. This is a
Paul?
slave. They are not free to go. And if they are free to go, that's not enslavement. That's employment. And that's not
Paul
what I see in the
identified himself
Bible.
as a slave
These
of Christ.
people are not able to be free.
Abraham identified himself as a slave of Jesus.
Well, that's not very
That's
smart.
the thing. We have to.
Why
look
would
at
you
the context.
enslave
We have to
yourself
look
to
at the
somebody?
meaning.
Why would you enslave yourself to somebody?
If you have a better understanding of what slavery is or could be,
I do. I can't break free. Is slavery something I can't get rid of? Can I not break free
Is
from
that the
servitude?
biblical definition of it?
Holy shit, David. I'm asking you.
No,
Is
I know.
slave in your head, in your mind,
But
to
look,
you,
like
your
I said,
definition, is it something
if
you
you-
can break free from?
if you start with your predetermined outcome that slavery in the Bible is equivalent to the transatlantic slave trade, to that general idea, if that's what you start with,
You haven't
you
convinced
will
me
interpret
otherwise.
everything through that.
I'm asking you
But
very specific
somehow-
questions to differ from that,
But
and you're not
somehow
answering them.
history says something very different.
All right, David.
It wasn't
let's go back.
atheists that
Let's go
it
back.
wasn't atheists that ended 2 global slave trades.
Oh, Jesus.
It
It
was
wasn't them that
Christians.
started it either. Let's go back. Let's
It
go
was
back to abortion.
Christian.
Yeah, Christians started slavery.
Okay.
Good job, Christians.
No, they ended
Let's
it.
go back to they started it too, David.
When did they start it?
I don't know. Holy crap. All right. So, abortion.
Why
Let's
do
go
you make
abortion.
claims that you don't know about?
David, same reason you do.
What claims have I made that I don't know about?
Is there a God, David?
I believe there is, and I
You believe,
just
but you
like
don't
Anthony
know.
Flew,
That's a
who
claim
was
you
one
don't
of
know
your-
about. That's a claim you
don't.
don't know about. Also, slavery in the
you-
Old Testament. You weren't there. That's a claim you don't know about. All we have is verses to go off of and history. So you weren't
So
there.
you
We
don't know
don't
about
know for
slavery in the
sure. We're
Bible?
all just giving our opinion on what things are. My opinion on the Bible is that it promotes slavery. The slavery where you
And the
can't go free.
opinion-
But your opinion is
and the
something
opinion
different, and you
of
haven't
scholars-
told me why it's that.
I've been trying to numerous
Okay,
times.
so
Be-
is
because
it
of
the same?
extended
Can
research.
I go free? Can I go free? Am I able to break free from this bondage, slavery, employment, whatever it is? Am I able to?
I'd have to look at those specific verses.
Right. It's not
some
in there.
cases-
It's not in there, David. It's not in there. So let's go back to abortion. You mentioned abortion is bad. You got kind of upset about it, and that's cool. I totally understand. So abortion, why do you find abortion so bad?
As atheist lesbian Camille Paglia says, it's murder.
Okay, cool. Why do you keep quoting atheists? It's very weird to me.
Why are there so many atheists who study these things
I
and
don't
come to
know.
different conclusions than you do?
David, my answer is I don't know.
No, but that's kind of the point that I'm getting at is you're not doing the research that they're doing.
I don't know why
but
they
you're
think that,
hard
David.
set- But you could learn.
Could. That's right.
So I'm
I still
taking
have
the
my
time-
opinion, and my opinion right now is
Yeah. So
I
I
don't
bought
know.
your book. When you messaged me, I looked up your website. I bought your book. I
Awesome.
read it. I finished it on Thursday.
cool.
I took the time to educate myself on what you said, on what you believed, on
And
why
I
you
appreciate
believed.
that, David. I appreciate that. That's why I ask questions, so I can educate myself
Okay.
on what you believe. So abortion, why do you think it's bad?
It's wrong to kill. It's wrong for a human to kill an innocent human being, and according to all scientific standards, unborn children are human beings.
Where does life begin, David?
According to embryology textbooks, it begins at conception.
Wow. Conception. So as soon as that sperm hits that egg, it's a human being? It's a
According
living-
to embryology textbooks, yes.
no, I don't believe you. But that's fine.
Have you looked
living-
at any? I did.
I don't believe you,
specifically
David.
Went and okay.
Cool. Thank you. Cool. So is it bad when your God ends a baby's life? Because it's a baby once it's conceived. That's it. It's a baby. In how you believe.
Scientifically, yes.
How you believe. So
No,
why is it
scientifically.
how you believe? And why do you
Scientifically.
we can do this all day, David. How fun.
I know. I've read the science. You
Holy
have.
shit. What are we, 10?
So you have your opinion, and I can respect that. You have
Why
your
is it
opinion, I
okay
respect
when
that.
Yahweh does it, David?
Does Yahweh perform abortions?
David, you've read the Bible,
don't
right?
remember
You think
reading
it's
him
true?
I also believe it's within context.
Cool. Let's go to one very big one, the flood.
Okay.
Were
Okay.
there any pregnant women during the flood?
I don't know. The Bible doesn't say.
100% there was, David. 100% there was. Logic
sure?
and common sense says if he's drowning the whole planet, somebody's pregnant.
We're both using logic and common sense, and we're coming to very
I don't
different
see yours.
conclusions.
I don't
know,
see it.
But
You're telling
I
me
don't
there's
see
no
yours
pregnant
either. So
woman
we
during the
can go
time of
back
the
and
flood.
forth on that.
You're telling me
want
there's no
evidence.
pregnant women during the flood. Hold on. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it doesn't say.
Holy shit, David. So you don't think there was any pregnant women during the flood?
I'm saying it doesn't say. That's all I'm saying.
David.
There may have been, there may not have been. The text
Of
doesn't
course
tell us.
there was, David. You think an
that they did.
entire planet full of people didn't have a pregnant woman on it?
I think it's possible.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's probable. I'm not saying it's
the
likely.
lengths you will go to make
and I'm
excuses
saying-
for this guy is
What
unbelievable.
excuses? How is stating?
It's an excuse. He didn't abort anybody. I don't know if there was
How
any
is-
pregnant women.
how is
Of course there
stating
was, David.
How is stating that the text doesn't say something
David,
an excuse?
it's an excuse.
No, seriously. How is stating that the text doesn't say something?
It's an excuse to get out of answering the question. Is what it is, David. It's an excuse to get out of answering the very simple question.
I mean, the very simple questions I've been asking you is why atheist scholars who study this come to different
And my answer is
conclusions
I don't
than you.
know, David. I don't know why. I haven't read them.
Which is why I asked the follow-up question, why aren't you reading them? I'm behind on every reading project I'm in, so don't get me wrong. I'm
There
not
you
trying
go.
to say, oh, well, you haven't read this
There you
one
go. I'm
book.
still reading all of these over here. And I just bought a new bunch of books. This one. Holy cow. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. I don't have time to read this. It sounds great, but I don't have time to read this. I have a whole
Gibbons is amazing.
list. Yeah, Gibbons is good. So, of course, no, I haven't had time, David. But you know the Bible. You know your God. You know the stories. And you have common sense because you know an entire planet full of people. There's going to be some of them that are pregnant. So yes, 100%. If that story is true, he aborted every baby on the planet.
That's abortion?
Did he kill the babies that were in their mothers?
If there were pregnant women, they died as a result of the flood, as a result of evil.
Aborting them. Aborting them in the process. Do you think causing a miscarriage
is willingly taking a human life?
Do you think causing a miscarriage is abortion? If I caused that, would that be aborting that pregnancy? Yes.
That would be an abortion.
Obviously. And Hosea, let's go back to that Hosea 9. I like this one. He really makes he's really mad at these people. He's really jealous. He's a jealous God. He punishes children because of his jealousy. So, and I love this excuse I get from Christian apologists all the time. Oh, God killed all of their kids because they were killing some of their kids. So God killed all their kids. That makes sense. Such a loving God. All right, there it is. Hosea 9:14. Hosea 9:14. Lord, what will you give them? Give them wombs that miscarry and breasts that are dry. So he's going to cause them to miscarry, which is an abortion. And then, he's going to starve the babies to death. The breasts are going to run dry. That's how mad he is.
Now,
that's our source of morality right there. Lashing out irrationally.
Do you understand the cultural context of that?
Oh my God, David. Tell me the cultural context.
Most societies, except for America in the last 20 years, but in particular in ancient Middle Eastern societies, bearing a lot of children was a sign of blessing and was a sign of honor.
Okay, cool.
So what this was saying is not necessarily God saying, hey, I'm going to, kill all your children. What God's saying is I'm taking away the blessings because of your evilness and your wickedness. And I'm leaving you. So
you're telling me when it says, give them wombs that miscarry and breasts that are dry, he's not talking about kids?
No, what I'm saying is he's going after
their children.
What they value, what their sign of blessing is.
Right. So it still doesn't make it any better, David. He's still killing kids. I will slay their cherished offspring, is what he says. Holy cow. That's your source of morality. Such a great guy. Such a loving father. Such a loving father. I don't see it, David. I don't see it. So why are
If
you
you
a Christian?
studied some of the, if
What
you studied some of the,
What happened?
what happened?
Yeah, what
I
happened? Why'd you
studied
become
the
a
evidence
Christian?
for the resurrection of. I studied the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, and came to the conclusion that that the resurrection is the best explanation for the evidence we have available for the events and the documents that are about
Wow.
30 AD or so.
How do you know it wasn't taken? The body wasn't moved. How do you know that?
There's no indication it was. Actually,
There's
a number
no
of secular
indication of
scholars,
anything. It's just a story about some dude rising from the dead. He's a demigod. That's not really anything. We don't have
demigod?
any physical evidence of it. He's a demigod. He's half god.
What do you mean by demigod?
Half god, half human, demigod. Half god.
That's not Christian theology.
That's cool, but that's what
Christian
he is.
theology that Jesus is half God, half human.
Of course,
He's fully God.
Christian theology is also not faith as make believe, but that's what it is.
I'm not saying Christian theology is true. I'm saying that if you're going to talk about something, you need to accurately describe it. If I'm going to talk about Hinduism, I need to describe Hinduism as Hinduism talks about it.
It's weird. I thought you were saying Christianity was true. I thought that's what your whole thing was.
I believe it is true, but
so that is your thing.
So it's not demigod. That's not
cool.
What Christian
That's
theology.
what I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him a demigod because that's what.
If you want to be wrong, call him that.
Fine. You can call him real. That's wrong, but you can call him that. It's fine. Resurrection.
Do you believe
Where is
Jesus
your
didn't
evidence for
exist?
this? Where is your evidence that Jesus rose from the dead?
Primarily in the 4 documents that Bart Ehrman identifies as positive biographical texts for his
Bart
life.
Ehrman thinks that Jesus rose from the dead?
He thinks the Gospels are primary biological records of his life. He disagrees with some of the things that are in there,
100%.
but he accepts them as historical sources.
That's not him raising from the dead. That's not evidence of him raising from the dead. I will agree with you. We will, yes, 100% agree. Bart Ehrman thinks Jesus was a real person. Me? I don't know. There's a lot of evidence going either way. But I guarantee you,
there is.
The dude didn't fly in the air.
What evidence
didn't raise from the dead?
The other way?
So what is your evidence of him raising from the dead? What is this conclusive
the historical
thing?
Document.
Which one?
All of them.
All
Even
of them.
the ones
That's
that are
so
non-Christian.
helpful. David, so is the gospel part of those historical documents?
The 4 Gospels or the Gospel?
Whatever you want. Let's go with the 4 Gospels. Do you think the Bible,
Yes.
the stories of Jesus,
Bart
I don't care about Bart Ehrman. I don't care about Bart Ehrman. Oh my God. I'm going to go Will Smith on you. I'm going to get his name out of your mouth.
Why do you disregard the scholars so much?
Because it doesn't matter, David. I'm talking about evidence for resurrection. You're talking about evidence for an actual human being. I agree.
No.
He could have been a human being. I want to know where your evidence for resurrection is, sir.
Okay. The resurrection, if it happened, it was a historical event. So we need to look at it the same way as every other historical event. We need to look at it for did Julius Caesar cross the Tiber or cross the the Tiber? The river?
We're talking about evidence for resurrection. What is the evidence?
I know.
What is it? What is it?
The historical records we have.
What
are you looking for physical evidence?
What is the evidence? You're saying there's 4 of them. Is it the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the primary.
Those are historical evidence.
According to Bart Ehrman.
Okay,
yes.
then fuck off with Bart Ehrman. My God, David.
If you don't want to listen to historians, I can't help you.
Damn it, David. Pay attention. Now,
okay.
So if those are historical documents, if those 4 are historical documents, please tell me, what did the women see? Which one was it? What did they see?
Yeah, which one?
Was it 2 angels? Was it a young dude? What was it?
Between the 4 Gospels, they record what multiple women saw. They document that multiple women were there.
What did they see?
They saw angels. They saw Jesus. They saw a couple different things, depending on who it was you were talking to.
So they didn't get their story straight.
That's actually an evidence of reliability. If you go to
100%, no. When you go to any kind of crime scene, you're not going to 100% rely on word of mouth.
Oh, that's funny, because one of the most famous police officers in the country, J. Warner Wallace, who's a notable Christian apologist, argues extensively that if you have all eyewitnesses saying exactly the same thing, it's called collusion.
It's not, they don't say the
And so
same
it's
thing,
actually-
David. They don't say the same thing. They all say different things.
No.
It's all mixed up. We don't know which one is true. We
That's
can't
what you
rely
find
on
in
it,
good
David.
crime
We
scenes.
cannot rely on
That's what
things that are not accurate. We can't.
How do you know they're not accurate?
Because they say different things, David.
That's what you find with reliable eyewitnesses. According to the police
Is
officers
there
and the lawyers
anything
that
else
investigate
you
this,
rely on that doesn't make sense, that doesn't add up, that's not the same? Is there anything else you rely on?
just
Math.
because
Would
you
your
don't
Sudoku,
understand it
if your
doesn't.
Sudoku didn't match up, if it like was inconsistent, would you like
That's the
think it's a
thing.
good thing?
No, I've tested
course
this. That's
not.
why I find it consistent.
You have not tested this. Where is your evidence for this resurrection?
you-
You've tested a resurrection. Let's see
The
it.
historical documents.
Those are not historical documents when they don't add up and they cannot be consistent.
Okay, again, collusion is a sign of unreliability.
That is the weirdest thing, David. I don't understand that.
You've never looked at that?
That's the weird. No, I've never.
That's
looked at it, David.
standard legal. That's standard legal investigation.
Cool.
If all of the eyewitnesses say exactly the same thing,
Okay.
the standard conclusion is that they made up their story.
So
They
all
got
these
together.
fanciful stories about people doing fanciful things are true because people witnessed it and said so?
No, it's because when we look at historical analysis,
So we can't just believe
They
everything we
made the
hear, right,
test.
David? Especially if it doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense.
that's why I don't believe anything you say. Just because you say it. That's why I don't believe anything Bart Ehrman says. Just because he
That's
says
awesome.
it.
No,
I look
100%.
at evidence.
Look it up. Look
Okay,
it up. We
but
read
here's
this
the
for that
thing.
reason. Absolutely.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Here's the
I'm
thing.
doing that research.
I
I'm
haven't.
learning the languages. I'm reading the historical texts.
Reading
I'm
the
reading the
gospel is not
scholars
doing
on
the
both
research,
sides.
David. I want you to
You
go
have to
outside
go
the
with it.
gospel. David, go outside the gospel. I want you to find me a resurrected human being. After 3 days, somebody coming back to life. Find me one.
Is that supposed to be disproving one historical event?
Right.
How?
Well, because it's insanity to believe
How
that
does-
it only happens once. You're telling me it only happened once?
I was only born once.
Right. Right.
No one.
Well, actually,
You're
Christian,
never
so
going to
you're
find
born
another
twice.
example of
You're
me
born
being
again.
born again.
You're born again. You're actually
Well,
a Christian, so
okay,
you're
pun
born twice.
intended.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how many belly
Good
buttons
pun, but-
do you have, David? How many belly buttons? 2?
But scientifically, you're not going to find me being born again.
No.
You're not going to find me being born a second time. The fact that another event, a historical event, hasn't been copied, because
It's
that's the
not-
whole point.
It's not tethered to
if-
reality, though, David. It's not
How did
tethered
you-
to
okay,
reality.
without starting with your predetermined outcome.
Right, which is the natural world I live in. My
So
reality,
naturalistic.
common sense.
Here's
I
another.
see.
Here's another atheist philosophy for you.
Right.
I'm going to thoroughly mess
Throw
with
it
your
out there.
thing.
I'm going to tell you I don't care.
Hey, if you want to go on public record saying
Tethered
you don't care what the
reality.
scholars
I want to
say,
be tethered to reality, David. An invisible person is not
Scientism
tethered in
isn't
reality.
tethered to
People
reality.
coming back from the dead is not tethered in reality. Ghosts impregnating virgins is not tethered in reality.
Okay, but scientism isn't tethered in reality. either.
Scientism?
Yes. The belief that the only thing that can be known is what can be verified by science. There's an article by atheist
David,
philosopher Massimo Pigliucci.
David, are you tethered in reality?
Reality includes the natural and the supernatural. Yes, I am.
There's no such thing as a supernatural. I'm sorry, David. So you're
And you have
tethered in
evidence for that.
You're tethered in reality, right? You're saying
You
there's a
have evidence
supernatural,
that there's-
David. David, hold on. You're saying there's a supernatural. I'm saying I don't believe you. That is your claim.
Okay.
Prove to me that supernatural is real. Show me.
Show math.
Math explains the supernatural.
No, math is something that's immaterial, cannot be verified by science, and therefore is not covered under nature. Therefore, math is, by definition, supernatural.
so sad.
Same thing
That's
with
so sad,
philosophy.
David. That's
Philosophy
so sad.
does not fall under science. Science
so
actually
sad.
falls under philosophy. So right off the start, we have things.
How many invisible people?
Science is a great tool.
Do you know
James Tour, look him up. He's one of the greatest scientists alive today and a great Christian apologist.
So do you believe in invisible people?
Just like the Invisible Man.
I don't know, angels, demons, God, Jesus. Are there invisible people around you? Are they existing?
I mean, obviously, I do believe God and Jesus exist.
Why? Why do
based
you
on the
believe
evidence from the Bible.
that exists?
based on the evidence from the Bible.
Because the book. That's it.
Is that a problem?
100%. I mean, you're tethered to reality here. But a book says the guy came back to life.
How are you defining
that
reality?
a magical
if you define
supernatural
reality
is not reality, David. You can't prove it.
Okay, can you prove that supernatural doesn't exist? And I'm not playing the prove God.
That's 100% what that game is, David. You made the claim.
I'm saying
prove to me that they're supernatural beings.
You are starting on the
You're starting on the premise that supernatural beings exist, David, and I'm asking you
I'm starting on the premise that both options are available.
Oh, so you're agnostic.
That doesn't mean both options are true.
So you're agnostic.
I'm starting on the premise when I research it. So I have two different ways I look and talk about this. When I talk with Christians, I presuppose the Bible is the Word of God, God exists, Jesus is the Lord, etc., because we share that belief. When I'm not talking with Christians, I do still hold that belief, but my research starts from it is a possibility that it could be true. What does the evidence say?
There's a possibility that I'm a pod person too, David. There's a possibility. I've seen movies. There's like 3 of them. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. How do I know that's not true? How do I know that's not happened? Because I live in reality, David. Because that doesn't happen in reality.
I mean,
that doesn't happen.
We have other atheists.
I don't care what other atheists say, David.
Okay, if you don't, again.
Why do you keep appealing to these other atheists? We're talking me and you, man. Me and you, not these other people, not Bart Ehrman.
Me and you, there is a big difference between us very clearly. One of us looks at the text and says the text is written.
No, we're talking about the God part right now. We're totally talking about the God part right now. We're basing ourselves in reality. Supernatural. You made that claim. Are there supernatural people? Please explain and prove to me that there are supernatural people out there. Beings. Sorry, beings.
I don't want to call them people. Based on the Bible, based on Jesus existing.
That's ridiculous. Spider-Man then. Spider-Man. Any other gods that predate your God?
Mock that example. Mock that.
Oh, for fuck's sake, stop with the atheist, man. Keep that word out of your motherfucking mouth. I'm talking about these other religions that came before you. How do you know these gods aren't real? They come before your God.
I accept the possibility that I could be wrong and those could be right. I will be looking.
Why do you believe it though, David? That's what I'm getting at. I want to know why.
I've been telling you that based on the historical
sorry, yes, you're right. I want the proof. That's what I want. I want the proof. I want you to show me why it's real.
And I've been saying that.
The Bible is not proof of that because then the Bhagavad Gita is the proof of Kali Ma. And that came before your God.
I'm totally not going to get that name right. If the book of Kali Ma is historically reliable, which I haven't researched that, I'll fully admit, I'd have to research that. If it turns out to be fully reliable, then hey, I may have to revise my worldview. At this time, based on what I've learned so far, I don't think it is. In particular, I haven't seen positive arguments for it. If I remember correctly, it's actually specifically not
any of your supernatural people either.
And I'm supposed to have to see everything in order to believe it's true.
Okay, so we're going to go down that rabbit hole.
I haven't seen a black hole, but I believe a black hole is true.
Does a black hole, like run your life? Do you run your life off of a black hole's existence? No, you do on God.
So now we're getting out of science, out of what do my eyes see.
That's where supernatural. As soon as you said supernatural, David, we left science.
That's my point. If by proof you want only that which fits science, then we have to reject all of history.
I think it's ridiculous that it's only the Bible that convinced you. You've never had an encounter with this invisible supernatural being? You've never talked to him face to face?
Not going to accept them, and 2, I don't count
you
that as.
Hold on, you saw God or Jesus?
No, I haven't seen God. I've had encounters, but I don't rely on that.
How do you know it was God then if you didn't even see him? How do you even know? How do you know it was your God? How do you know it wasn't Satan? How do you know it wasn't a lying spirit from God? Like, weird. Okay, so what did he say? Unlikely. What did he say?
Okay, so I'm going to be upfront. You're going to laugh at this, and I don't blame you.
Sorry.
No. Not because of religion. It's because it was from Star Trek.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I love Star Trek, man.
So Actually, there's two main cases. The first one was, I was watching an episode of Star Trek Voyager. It was one of the first episodes.
Janeway.
I don't remember which one. Huh?
Oh, Janeway. Sorry,
Okay.
Janeway. I was just being
Yeah,
attracted.
it was Janeway and Torres. And I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but basically, it was the Federation and a bunch of rebels. They ended up going through a wormhole together. One ship got destroyed. Both crews of both ended up on one ship on the Voyager. And so there was tension between, hey, we're enemies, but we're 70 million light years from home. So we're going to be friends until we get home. So at one point, Janeway and Torres go head to head. And Janeway flat out tells Torres that as long as you're on this ship, you will obey what I say. If you want to get off the ship, that's fine. We can talk about that. I'm not, going to space lock you. But while you're on the ship, you're going to do what I say. As a matter of self-preservation and just the reality, that's what the situation required. Well, I happened to watch that at a time where in my work, I was having some issues with my supervisors. And to me, that was plain as day as God saying, hey, here's a lesson for you while you're here in this position, as long as they don't ask you to do something immoral.
As plain as day. You said as plain as day. Explain that.
It was clear to me that it was God speaking, using that to teach me a lesson.
Was it a voice, or was it a thought that came into your head?
It would be a thought.
Okay, so you had a thought, and you attribute it to an invisible being.
That's what it was clear to me it was, and that's why I wasn't going.
Why was it clear to you? That is so weird, David. But why? Why was it so clear?
That's why I don't need that as evidence, because
you need to look into that. You need to dissect that. 100%.
If someone came up and told me the same thing, I would respect that they had an experience. I would be a little bit skeptical. I wouldn't mock them, but I would like I said, I would respect. Okay, you had some kind of experience. I can't.
You had a thought, David. It's all it is. It's a thought, and you're attributing it to an experience with a supernatural being. That is so weird. That is so weird, David. I don't attribute any of my thoughts to a supernatural being. And
that's
the
fine.
fact
you
that
also
you
reject most of academia, and that's weird to me.
I don't know what.
So we can both have things that we both believe about that we believe that we think the other person is.
Oh man, dude. Oh man, I love this. This is fun. All right, you got some more time? About another half hour. You good? You get? Okay, I'm gonna take a quick break here, and then I'll come right back. All right.
That's okay.
All right. So where were we?
So personal experience.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to believe that. I really don't. Like no one else was there. It was just me. I can tell you, like, this is what I honestly experienced. This is what I went through. You're free to doubt it, and I'm not going to hold anything against you for doubting it. Like I said, I wouldn't believe it or positively believe it. I wouldn't necessarily disbelieve it, but I wouldn't positively believe it if someone came up and told me similar.
Right, but let's tether ourselves to reality.
Okay, so
that's what I want to do. I want to tether ourselves to reality. In reality, are there supernatural beings giving you thoughts? Or are you coming up with your own thoughts?
If you're presupposing that that's not tethered to reality, I'm telling you what I think it was, and I'm fully admitting
all of your thoughts,
I don't have evidence that would fit you.
Are all of
your expectations that would prove it?
Yeah, totally. Don't worry about it. Are all of your thoughts come from these supernatural beings, or are you responsible for any of your own thoughts?
I'm responsible for a lot of my thoughts. I would probably say.
So how do you differ between your thoughts and your deity's thoughts that he's sending you? How do you differ? Differentiate. There's the word.
It's you're gonna hate this, but it's a feeling. Like I can't get more precise than that.
And like I said, I fully acknowledge, David. I mean, if I had just a feeling for anything, I wouldn't take it as fact.
But again, that's why I don't base my faith on I had those experiences, because I know experiences.
So what do you base your faith on?
On a historical study of Jesus, which
historically,
the Gospels and plenty of others.
You really need to historically study other beliefs besides just that one.
I do. I try to. I'm
Well,
reading Martin
the one that
Luther's
comes before
biography of
yours.
Muhammad.
The one that comes before yours, you should probably look at that one.
I have the Tibetan Book for the Dead up on my shelf. It's in both English and Hindi.
Hinduism.
I'm still
Look up
learning Hindi.
Hinduism. Check out the Bhagavad Gita. Check out all the religions that came before yours.
Yeah, I try to. It's not my area of specialization, but I try to. I try to be fair because part of my.
You want to throw out names? Let's throw out a name. You ever heard of Fraser? What's his first name? James Fraser. James Fraser. The Golden Bough.
Wasn't he debunked as a hack?
No, I don't know. I never heard of that.
No. You may want to look into that.
Yeah. You may want to look into him otherwise, though, because
he's got that's responsible for much. Yeah, wasn't that book responsible for much of the myth information we have in the
no, not that I know. Everything seems to make a lot of it makes sense as far as historically. And the Bible's true.
No.
Come on,
hold the Bible to the same standard. Hold the Bible to the same standard.
You do not. You do not.
Okay,
you put both those books in the same standard. Then go grab a Bhagavad Gita and put it in the same standard as your Bible. You will realize that those stories are true. Oh my God, there's a city that resembles a real city. These are real people that resembles real people. It must be true. Historically accurate.
Do historians say that?
David, you're the one saying this. We're talking about me and you. Me and you. You can research it.
I'm
100%. I implore you, research the religions that came before yours.
I do my best to research as much as I can.
You just said you've never researched the Bhagavad Gita. The one religion that came before yours, the biggest one, and you haven't researched it. And you're telling me what you have researched.
It's an ongoing thing.
Check it out.
I'm never going to be done with my research. I'm never going to be done with my research. I'm never going to be done reading my library, much less finishing my reading.
Oh my God. Yeah. My kids will end up finishing my library.
No, at the rate I'm going, my grandkids won't be able to finish my library at the rate I'm going. Legitimately, I do my best. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. I'm still studying. But to the best of my ability, I do study other religious beliefs and try to hold the same standard to them as I do with the Bible. Again, I appreciate that. Yeah. But case in point, I have several tarot decks and I've read the things on them. I try to read the history on them. My current study is progressive Christianity, which is a cultic offshoot of Christianity. And my study for that means I'm reading 30 plus of their books. So I'm reading what they say themselves. I've started and then totally got derailed from it. My study on Islam, using Islamic scholars. I've read part of the Quran. I've read all of Understanding the Quran by Muhammad Abdel Halim. I've started Martin Ling's biography of Muhammad, and I try to look at it of okay, they're saying these things are happening. Okay, what's the situation? What's the context? When were these texts written? What are the cultural things I need to be aware of for these texts? I try to do the best I can with both of them. I will get to Hinduism specifically eventually.
Definitely try that one. But what have you found with Islam? What have you found wrong with it?
Well, the first thing that's extremely notable is the Quran explicitly rejects the crucifixion of Jesus, which is held as virtually certain by almost every single historian out there, with the exception of
which one was written first? Do you know? Because I'm fuzzy on that.
The Quran was written in 650 something AD, something 600s or 700s. I don't remember exactly when. So the Quran was written several hundred years later. So it was written by Muhammad in over the course of, I want to say it was about 30 years. It was revealed to him in visions that, as best I understand it from how Islamic scholars present it, no one else saw the visions. At some point, some people saw him have some kind of an episode during which he supposedly received a revelation. And so it was written through that time period, about 600, 700 some years after Jesus lived.
Do you believe he had that revelation?
I don't know. I mean, if I start with Christianity, then obviously, no, I don't believe it came from God. But on an objective basis, the fact that no one else saw it ever, by Islamic testimony, from what I understand it, the testimony of Islamic apologists and Islamic theology is that no one else ever saw it. And so that to me is an immediate, I don't know, because he may very well have had an experience, and that experience may have involved a real being, but that's as far as I can take it. Now, let's contrast that with Jesus. Jesus was seen by crowds. He was seen by dozens, by hundreds, all kinds of different people at all kinds of different time. Now, that doesn't prove anything about Jesus was true.
Just that he was a person.
But the claim is but that's the thing, is I'm trying to be consistent. The claims between the two are substantially different. The claim that Muhammad existed, people saw him. Okay.
There are so many godlike figures in history, though. Kings that have been deified, people that have been deified. There's a ton of them. People have been, this was a messenger from God. I mean, all the time.
It's noteworthy, though. In most, if not all of those cases, it's not the person saying they are God. With Jesus, he made specific claims that, according to Judaism, he was claiming to be God. For instance, he claimed to have the power to forgive sins. Now, whether he can or not is, we can ask that. But he claimed to be able to do that, which only God could do.
Trinity.
So
do you
Jesus
believe in the Trinity?
Specifically made, yes.
Why?
That I find to be the best explanation of what we find Scripture teaching about who Jesus is, who God is, who the Holy Spirit is.
So what is the Trinity to you, before we dive into that? What is it
it's
to you?
3 persons in one being.
3 person in one being. So they're the same person.
No, 3
just
persons.
So there's 3 separate people.
And don't get me wrong, I get that it's confusing.
100% very confusing.
On a strictly logical basis, it's not a contradiction, because it's not saying it's 3 persons and 1 person.
Tethered to reality, David. Okay. Let's try and tether that to reality. How does that work? How can you explain that in our reality?
I can't really.
Okay, so it doesn't make sense.
Bart Ehrman, no.
Stop quoting Bart Ehrman. God damn it, David. If you say Bart Ehrman one more time, He wrote
a great article that explains it. What can I say? What
do you?
I agree with Bart Ehrman on this. Okay, but I'm going to attribute it to him.
Okay, go ahead.
So he wrote an article about orders of being, and how, let's assume for argument that a rock is an order of being. And that
a rock is an order of being?
For the sake of argument, just hear me out.
No, I'm just trying to understand.
So he wrote, if we take that as a rock, okay, an ant is a higher order of being than the rock. The rock can only perceive certain things. An ant can perceive a whole lot more things than the rock can. The rock cannot perceive the world in the way the ant can.
Okay.
Now, let's go up from an ant to a dog.
Okay.
A dog can perceive the world in ways that the ant can't even remotely comprehend. And similarly, mankind can comprehend the world far more than a dog is even remotely capable of comprehending.
Okay.
Now, in Bart Ehrman's article, which I 100% agree with, whether Christianity is true or not, if we have, an order of being rock, we have an order of being ant, we have an order of being dog, we have an order of being man, whatever higher order of being above man, whether it exists or not, if there is a higher order being or multiple higher orders, they will be able to understand things that we're not remotely capable of understanding, simply because of our limitations as humans.
I asked you to explain it, and you just told me you don't know how to explain it.
I'm explaining why I accept that it is true, but that doesn't mean I understand how all it works out, and I can't prove
David,
it.
we're gonna what is it? Tether that to reality. We're gonna tether that to reality. You gave the Bart Ehrman thing of man, dog, ant, and rock. They are not the same being. You're telling me
they're not the same. No.
Right, it's different. It's different.
I'm not saying they're different beings. I'm saying it's an order of being.
So there's an order of being. They're not the same being.
No, I'm not saying that they're related to the Trinity. I'm saying that
I'm trying to understand the Trinity.
I'm saying if the Trinity exists, if God exists, he is an order of being far above mankind, far above Homo sapiens.
That's a really long way of saying I don't know. Do you know? Are you really saying you don't know?
I told you I believe it's true. I believe it's the best explanation from what we have in Scripture.
Okay, so let's explain it then. Really if it's the best explanation, let's explain it. Because what I see in here is Jesus praying to himself. That's weird.
Okay, that's not the Trinity.
Is God part of the Trinity? Is Jesus part of the Trinity?
No.
Is God and Jesus part of the Trinity? Yes.
Jesus
so
was
that is
to
the Trinity.
Do you want me to answer or no?
I'm just frustrated. Go ahead.
If Jesus was praying to himself, then that would be either Unitarianism or modalism, where it is one person. And that's why we don't believe it's one person. We believe it's three persons.
My problem with
Now,
it,
I get that you struggle with it. I struggle with it too.
he's
I
asking
believe
for
that
things
is the
from
best
himself.
explanation. Under Unitarianism or modalism, yes. But that's not what we believe. In Trinitarianism, it was God the Son asking God the Father, two different persons. Like I said, I understand your frustration. I do. I wish like one thing as a Christian that I part of me praises God for and part of me wrestles with God with is that there's a lot of things that I'm like, I really wish you would have just come down and said explicitly, clearly this, and this.
So you're
just ended all the
confused.
arguments and explained it. Not confused, but I recognize that
Sounds confused.
no, I'm clear on what it is,
You
but
don't
that
want to say
doesn't mean I
confused.
understand how to explain it.
That's confusion.
No, that's not the same thing.
You don't know how it
confusion
works. You don't know how it works, right?
One
That's
can be
confused
ignorant
on
without
how it
being
works.
confused. One can be ignorant without being confused. They're not necessarily the same thing. But like I said, I get your frustration.
I understand why you're not saying
I'm not trying to argue, hey,
because God's
here's
not the
proof of
author of
Trinity.
confusion. I understand what you're not saying. I understand. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and apparently it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you, and you can't seem to explain it. So
I get that it's the best explanation from Scripture.
Best, God, David, but that's not a good explanation. I don't understand why anybody would follow that as a reason to believe. So because the Bible has,
I don't follow it as a reason to believe. I follow it because I believe.
Yeah, because the Bible is true. So as far as let's only got a little bit of time here. Thank you for staying after. I appreciate it. Satan,
this is fun.
Same, I appreciate it. Satan, do you think he's a real guy? Tell me your thoughts on Satan. Tell me.
I think there's a lot of myths that have developed around him, but I think at core there is a real being that's there.
Real being. Describe him for me.
A fallen angel.
Fallen angel. Okay.
The Bible talks more about his morality than about his physical or I think it would be ontological description.
Well, let's just pull in. Let's just think about it for a second. Who created Satan?
When God created the angel Lucifer, he was as a good angel.
And he didn't know what he was going to do. He had no idea this guy was going to be the ultimate bad guy in the world. Is that true?
He knew what was going to happen. That doesn't mean he caused it.
He knew.
Well, I mean, if he's omniscient, of course he knows.
If I create a disease that wipes out 30% of humanity, it's not my fault. I'm not the one who did it. The disease did it.
No, there's difference between you creating a mindless thing that does what it's programmed.
Okay, fine. I create a monster. And I'm going to create a monster that wipes out 30% of humanity. Okay. Am I at fault? Am I at fault? Or
was she responsible for what Hitler did?
Hitler's mom didn't know, David. Hitler's mom didn't know. Your God is not ignorant, is he? Is he an ignorant guy?
She knew it was Hitler's decision.
It was God's decision to create something knowing what it would cause. If I create a monster who I know is going to cause death and destruction, it's not the monster's fault. I'm the one that created it and made it that way.
Choose to do the monster. The angel didn't choose to fall and become a monster, and then didn't choose to do.
How about this, David? If I just not make a monster. If I know that this person's going to become a monster, I just not make them.
That if I were
as a loving,
I can't remember who said it, but there's a great quote that someone was asked,
rational,
would they have created the world the way it was if they were God? And the person said, if they were omnipotent, yes. If they were omnipotent, no.
I don't.
If they were omniscient, they don't know.
I don't care what that person said. That doesn't make any sense to create the bad guy, David.
I'm using it to make a point.
I know.
I don't know the whole extent of all of the consequences of everything that has happened and what is the greater good. I don't have that knowledge.
God does.
And in God being omniscient, decided that was a good thing to do.
What do you think Satan is responsible for in the world today?
everything that Satan chooses to do. For the
What do
most
you
part, the
think?
evil we see in the world is a
Evil.
result of either the.
So he's
Satan
responsible for
is-
evil.
He
God
is
created
responsible for his evil. Mankind is responsible for mankind's evil.
Come on, David. Of course
No,
he's
there
responsible for
are
his
some-
evil. Who's responsible for
No,
somebody
there-
else's evil? Nobody. Come on. So God,
No, each person is responsible for what they do. I know
God
some
is
Christians
responsible
try
for
to blame
creating
Satan for
something.
everything, but
God is responsible for creating something he knows is going to cause evil in the world. If I knew
for some
when I was
reason, with
creating
knowledge
something,
I
if
don't
Hitler's
have,
mom knew what she was creating, rational, empathetic human beings or mystical, whatever they are, beings would know better, especially a loving God. He would know
okay,
that releasing a bad guy to destroy and kill his own children is not a good idea.
if I had the full knowledge of God, I would be happy to answer that.
So you
I
go,
don't. No,
David,
this is
David,
another-
David, nope.
No,
No, you are not going to
let me-
tell me that
let me give you-
fucking cancer and
let me
kids
give you a
raping
human
children
example.
in church is all part of God's plan? Is that what you're telling me?
Let me give you a human example.
Is
This
that what
another-
you're telling me, David?
I'm telling you that mankind has chosen to do some horrible things.
Is that Satan did it? Satan convinced them to? Is that what you're saying? Or God did it? Was
In
it
some
God or
cases,
Satan?
Maybe,
Who
probably
did it?
not.
Huh? Sorry. what?
The people themselves.
Okay, so no influence from Satan. Satan didn't influence people to do bad things, to do evil.
Sometimes Satan does. Most of the time, though, Satan doesn't need to be involved.
Satan doesn't need to be involved for people to do bad things, is what you're saying?
So I realize that it's a common belief, and unfortunately, a lot of Christians say it, that Satan's behind every evil thing that happens. No, Satan's behind a lot, but he's behind the things he's behind.
Cool. The
doesn't
things
mean
that he's behind,
everything.
let's talk about those. What do you think he's behind specifically?
I don't know.
Weird.
What I'm saying is Satan
But
is
you know he's
responsible
behind
for his
things.
actions. I mean,
But you don't know what
I
he's
do
behind.
believe Satan exists and he's doing things.
Do you think he's egotistical? Do you think he's a very proud being?
From what I understand, that was the source of his fall.
Interesting.
Is he
So
was explicitly
why do we
rebelling
not
against
hear
God.
about more horrible things being done in the name of Satan? Wouldn't Satan want his name on everything? Hey, look what I did.
Not necessarily.
No, Satan doesn't want his name on things. He's not egotistical then. He's not proud.
No, that doesn't have to be the same
Not
thing.
proud of his work. Is he proud of his work?
Being proud of your work and wanting your
Uh-huh.
name on every
Yeah.
door doesn't
On every
aren't
door? No,
necessarily-
every bad
aren't
thing that
required.
happens. This is his thing. He's the evil guy. And he's proud.
Okay,
He's proud
but
of his evilness. He's proud of
again,
himself. So
I'm not
why would he
saying
not
Satan is
attribute
behind
these
every
horrible
evil
things?
thing.
Why would he
But
not
I'm not
attribute
saying-
himself to the more evil things that have happened? Salem witch trials, crusades.
Is
Dark
he
Ages.
responsible for those more evil things? I don't know.
That's so weird. So weird. It still
Well,
doesn't make
why
any
is it-
sense to
No.
go.
Legitimately, I'm not blaming Satan for what Joe Schmo down the street does. I don't do that. I don't think the Bible
Uh-huh.
teaches that.
Well, of
What
course.
Joe Schmo down the street does is what Joe Schmo down the street decided to do.
So why is Satan even here then? If he's not influencing people to do bad things all the time, who's influencing the people to the bad things?
Who says they need to be influenced by anyone outside of themselves?
So you're saying God created people that are just bad?
No, I'm saying God created the world and the fall created bad people. Again, going back to the French Revolution and the American Revolution. In the French
Hold on.
Revolution,
The
they
fall
denied
created bad people?
God created the world.
Uh-huh.
Initially, it was good.
Well, how was it good when there's disobedient people in it?
It
So he
hadn't-
created bad
There
people.
weren't disobedient people when he
I mean,
created.
Eve disobeyed him. That's the whole thing. That's the
They
whole
weren't
story.
disobedient when he created them. They
He
disobeyed.
knew they
after
were
he
going to be
created them.
disobedient.
Yeah,
So
he
he
knew
knew
they-
he was creating disobedient people.
He knew the opportunity was there for them to do it, and
He
he
knew
what
it.
would happen if they took that path.
No. The opportunity only presented itself when he put the trees there. Otherwise, there would have been no opportunity for them to sin.
Which, if there hadn't been no opportunity, wouldn't have been a truly living relationship.
100%. I am not going to put a poison gummy bear in the middle of my kid's room and tell them, don't eat it. Don't eat that gummy bear.
We don't-
I know you
don't know
like
if it
gummy
was
bears.
poison.
I know you like fruit, but don't eat this one. Don't eat it. I know you don't know right from wrong, good from evil. You don't know good from evil. You don't know disobeying me is a bad thing.
Okay. but
Also,
they
I
don't
know
have-
you're going to take it. I know you're going to take it ahead of time. Before I even put that gummy bear in there, I know you're going to take it. And
Okay,
even
now,
yet,
do you
even
notice the
better, David,
contradiction you just
even
did?
better, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to let this bad guy in to try and convince them to eat that deadly gummy bear. That's what I'm going to do.
Do you
And I'm
know
not
the
at fault at all.
contradiction in what
I'm
you
just here.
presented?
I just created the situation. I'm not responsible for what they do. I just created the situation, just like God. I created the situation. I put the bad thing there. I put the bad guy in there. I'm not responsible. That's that free will, man. Free will.
Okay. Do you understand the contradiction where you're going there?
Not a chance. What's the contradiction?
Okay. So first, you asked me about who Satan influences to do evil, and if it's not Satan, who influences them, which is itself a fair question.
Mhm.
But then you present a scenario where your kids would pick the wrong thing without
Right, because I'm
your
God.
influence.
In that
without-
situation, I'm
no.
God. Yeah.
But
Just like God.
your kid, because kids don't need to be influenced to make the wrong decision.
No, not all the time, but sometimes. So what? Let's make sure they make that wrong decision. Let's make sure by sending in that bad guy to seal the deal. Or maybe I knew
God sent Satan in.
who let him in the garden. Why would God have
God
Satan in the
allowing
garden?
something and God sending something aren't the same thing.
Who sent the snake?
It doesn't say God sent the snake.
Who?
We just know the snake was there.
Well, why would God let an evil thing into his perfect garden? I thought he doesn't create bad things.
One of the great things about being a Christian is that we aren't expected to have the answer to everything. We're just expected to have
Right,
some
but
answers
when
to
we
some of the most important
when we
things.
tether it to reality, when we start to really peel it apart and think about
know,
it
but
doesn't make
whose-
any sense, David.
Whose tether is more
Mine and yours.
well-grounded?
We just agreed.
I know.
We just agreed.
Whose-
You don't know. It doesn't make sense, though. We just
Whose
agreed
tether
that.
is more well-grounded? The one who's learning the cultures, who's reading the scholars, who's
Who
looking
believes
at
in
this from multiple
invisible,
perspectives.
magical people
So
versus
you're
somebody who's more
presupposing-
tethered to reality.
Okay. So again, going back to your book, when you start with a predetermined outcome, you're judging
My outcome is
tether-
zero. Zero, David. I start with zero gods when I start off. Do you know how many
Okay.
gods there are, David? I'm not going to pick one. I'm going to wait.
Okay,
I'm going to
hold
look
up. Do-
and I'm
do
going to
you
talk to
start-
him. Nope, no one's talking to me. No, okay,
Do
researching.
do you start with none exists?
Right,
or
no
do you
gods.
start with you haven't
I
picked
start
one?
with no gods exist, no superhero exists, no invisible ghosts exist. That's
So
what I
you
start with.
with a predetermined outcome.
No, my predetermined
No.
start is there
No,
zero.
there-
Let's look.
no,
Are they
there-
there? Is Jesus
there
there?
is a-
Is he going to talk to me?
There
No,
is a difference
no.
between atheism, which is no deity exists, and agnosticism, which is I don't know if a deity exists.
Mhm.
I
David, if you
encourage
knew me,
to start with
I thought you knew
don't
me.
know.
I thought you knew me.
I know.
I'm an agnostic
an
atheist,
atheist.
David. I'm an agnostic atheist, David.
Oh, you use that philosophical failure of the
I
quadrant.
love
Okay.
that you call it that. David, guess what? I'm going to explain it for you. Ready? Real simple.
I
Real
understand it. Mento
explain it.
wrote it like 10 years ago.
Explain it.
It's a quadrant. Agnostic, Gnostic, atheist, theist. Atheism versus theism is contrasted as simply whether you have belief or don't have belief. Agnosticism and Gnosticism is contrasted over whether you have knowledge. And it's
No,
incompetent.
no,
because-
explain that to no, explain that what that is. Agnostic atheist. What is that?
No, so under that view,
Uh-huh.
you do not believe that a
No,
deity
what is it though? Like
I'm explaining it.
okay, sorry,
You
go
do
ahead.
not believe that a deity exists, and you do not know whether one does or does not exist. That's what the claim is.
I'm not making a
There's-
claim. That's my thing.
That-
Is I'm avoiding
no,
a claim
That's
altogether.
what the claim about atheism, agnosticism is. That's the claim about this. The position is this.
All right, well, let me tell you what I think. I love it.
Okay.
Here's my opinion on what it is. So there's lots of gods out there. I don't know if they exist. I haven't heard from them. I haven't seen any evidence that they are actually real beings. So therefore, I'm agnostic and I'm atheist on it. There's no proof. I don't know. I'm going to lean towards no because they still haven't proved themselves to me. But I still don't know because, hey, there could be an invisible person out there somewhere. Highly doubt it's the God of the Bible, though. But hey, I don't know. I don't know everything. So that's where I'm at, David.
Mhm.
I don't know. Therefore, I'm leaning towards no because of the no evidence part.
Okay, but again, if you start with none exist,
We all start
that
with
is
zero,
a
right?
predetermined outcome.
You start with zero. You don't start
No.
with like 10 gods.
There's a difference between starting with zero and starting with I don't know the number.
I stop. You know what? Here it is. Let me just a little better. I
Okay.
start with 0 because I don't believe in any of those gods. So in order for me to believe in any of those gods, I have to start adding to that. 1, your God. Don't think so. Haven't seen evidence, blah, blah, blah. Tree spirits. I don't think they exist either. Vampires. I doubtful. All these different things.
Mm-hmm.
I start with 0. I start believing in 0 things right off the bat. That's it. And then I move up from there. That's where the research comes in. That's where the denial of what I've seen, what I've heard comes in.
Okay, so what do you think of the cosmological argument?
I think it's
as
dumb.
formulated by
I think it's dumb. Because of the cosmological argument, believe just because. So I'm going to believe in all of these other gods.
That's what the cosmological argument says.
Break it down for me, David. Break it down for me. What is the cosmological argument?
The cosmological argument, first formulated by Aristotle, then continued by I never remember
Break it
his
down.
name.
What is it? I don't care who started it. Break it down.
Okay. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist.
So then God has a cause.
He did?
Everything that exists has a cause.
That's not the claim. That's a common straw man. Everything that begins to exist.
Oh, so you're making a special pleading for your deity. He didn't begin to exist. He's always been.
No, that's literally what Christianity says.
It's mythology.
But whether that's true or not needs to be tested.
You can't test that. You can't test that, David.
We can look at it logically and scientifically. And
right, logically, it doesn't add up. Logically, it doesn't.
How does it? So start with the cosmological argument. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause.
I already explained to you why I don't buy it. I already explained to you why I don't buy it. I don't believe that everything that exists has, that your God has to have a cause. That's what I believe. If you're stating that everything has to have a cause that began, your God had to begin at one point.
Why?
I don't know.
No,
because I don't deal in infinity and eternity. I don't deal with that. I don't.
That's one of the problems.
Why is that a problem?
If an infinity can't really exist, if an infinity of time existed before our time, we never would have gotten here to today. The only way we got here today is if there is a beginning. So whatever cause of the universe there was, and I'm not at God yet. I'm just at there is a cause. That science.
Occam's razor. That's what I was thinking of.
No, it's not Occam's razor. Science is
the other one I was thinking of.
Virtually 100% certain that the universe did have a beginning. Science is pretty much stuck on that.
How do you know it's not coming from a black hole somewhere? Somebody, a black hole sucked in another universe and spit out ours. How do you know that's not it? Do you call that God?
Can I finish?
Okay.
So science is mostly settled that the universe had a beginning. Now, if the beginning was another universe, that's hypothetical. That's possible. The multiverse theory.
It's infinity.
The problem is that universe would have to have a beginning.
Nope.
And then the universe before that, and then the universe before that. At some point, there had to be something that is the first.
Always existed. The universe has always existed. It's a timeless loop of cycle and recycle.
And you have evidence for that?
You have evidence for your invisible man?
I'm getting to that.
Okay, your Bible doesn't count.
I'm not looking at the Bible.
Okay, go ahead.
The cosmological argument.
Go ahead. So how do you know it's not the universe has always existed versus it's your invisible man? How do you know that?
According to science, according to Big Bang cosmology and most scientific research, the universe had a beginning. We have no evidence for a multiverse. Now, it's possible. There's a lot of theory about that. Don't get me wrong.
We have no evidence for an invisible man starting things either, besides a book telling us that tells us to stone.
I mean, if you stop mid-argument, then sure, there's no evidence.
Wow.
If you stop mid-argument, sure, there's no evidence.
The Bible is not evidence of your God, and neither is that argument. That argument can be anything. It could be anything. How do you get from that argument to the Christian deity, David? How does that work?
So what the argument argues is that it's going to take time to unpack. These things take time.
That's why. How do you get? No. How do you get to?
I know.
There has to be a cause to the universe, to it being your specific God.
Through a bunch of other steps that I'm going to have to take.
The Bible. Is it the Bible?
No.
Okay. What other steps point to Yahweh?
Okay. We start with the universe had a cause.
Great.
In order for that cause to exist, it has to be transcendent. It has to be outside of the universe.
Great. There's a God that created the universe. Let's just start with that. A God created the universe. Which God? And how do you know?
Okay, that God, if it's a personal God, which we know it would be due to agency and the desire to create in the first place, if could be a
He could have just
deistic
left
God,
him.
but if it were to reveal itself, it would reveal itself and show itself to people on this earth. We believe he has.
Do you know how many gods have revealed themselves to people on earth?
I know a lot have claimed to, and I know there's a lot I haven't studied. I also know a lot, most of them, at least all the ones that I've looked at so far, don't bear a flicker compared to the evidence we have for Jesus.
Oh my God, David. Whew.
I mean, that's what the evidence says. If you want to look at the evidence, I can give you plenty of resources.
No.
The evidence
100,
doesn't say
no, the 100%. There are stories or evidence of other beings or showing themselves to people or gods or there's so many different things, David.
The fact that stories exist doesn't mean all stories are on the same level.
Right.
Again, look at,
how do you know your story is the right one, David?
Like I did with the comparison between Muhammad and Jesus. In even taking Islam at face value, according to what they say,
personal.
No one saw Muhammad's revelations.
Personal.
So that's
it's a personal thing. So you have a relationship with this personal deity.
I believe I do.
That's the weirdest thing you've said all day, David. So how do you have a relationship with this invisible man who doesn't talk to you, who sends you thoughts and feelings? How is that a relationship?
He revealed himself through scripture. That is.
Do you have that kind of relationship with anybody else?
Is anybody else that I have a relationship with a God?
Do you have that kind of relationship with Bart Ehrman after reading his stuff?
With other humans? No, of course not. They're humans.
Of course not. Of course. How silly.
They're humans.
How silly. Tethered in reality. How do you have a relationship with an invisible man who doesn't show up to your birthday party and never talks to you?
I mean, if you presuppose that he didn't talk to me through Star Trek, you're presupposing that. That's your predetermined outcome.
Is that a physical voice, David? That's what I'm talking about, talking.
Okay.
Talking, like me and you, back and forth,
you're talking
like an actual relationship.
So you're talking it has to be the five senses. But that's
David,
materialism, which is philosophical failure.
Do you have a relationship with any other invisible person?
No.
No. Would you call a relationship with any other invisible person an actual relationship?
If that invisible person actually existed, yes.
David,
now,
he doesn't talk to you and you've never seen him. He just sends you feelings and thoughts, but you think he exists. But nobody, now these other gods don't exist. How do you get to that?
Let's go hypothetical.
No hypothetical. I want to know for real.
Okay.
Real life, grounded in reality.
That's predetermined outcome.
No, you can't predetermine that there's an invisible man out there, David. You have to actually.
I'm not predetermining it. You're not
predetermining Christianity is real.
If we want to look at it, we have to, or one of the tests we have to do is, for the sake of argument, let's say that's true. Now, what do we get? That's part of hypothesizing. That's part of the scientific method.
Right. Okay.
What is a relationship?
Would you have that kind of relationship with anybody else and call it a relationship?
With any other human? No. People aren't God.
Right. It doesn't change the meaning of relationship.
God's nature allows him to do things that humans can't.
Like what? Be invisible and not talk to you?
You're presupposing he doesn't talk to me.
You just said he sends you thoughts and feelings, not a physical voice. We just discussed that.
Does it have to be?
That's not talking.
Voice?
Yes.
So the only way he can talk is through a physical voice. That's
communication is key.
Yes.
To any relationship, right?
Communication doesn't have. Look at fiction stories. Telepathy happens in fiction stories. That's not voice.
Your God is sending you messages through telepathy?
No, I'm using it to make a point.
Well, how is it not telepathy?
Are you always this hyper literalistic and fundamentalistic?
Dude, you just said he sends you thoughts. That is telepathy, is it not?
That would be what telepathy.
Right. He's not sending you. He's not coming over and saying, "Hey, David, this is what I want you to do." No, he's sending you thoughts and tingles. That's not a relationship.
Okay. But again, if that happens,
it's not a relationship. Even if it happens.
No, for the sake of argument, if that happens, that's communication.
That's not a relationship, David.
You're saying that relationship requires communication. So if I'm able to talk to him And again, we're going hypothetical. I'm not saying this to prove to you that he's real. I'm just saying if we don't start on the predetermined outcome and we just look at, okay, let's assume for the sake of argument this is true, what would it be?
What would this all-powerful God be that wants to have a relationship with me? What would he do? What would I do as an irrational, broken human being? What would I do if I wanted to have a relationship with somebody?
I mean, as
I'd show up
pretty convincingly in Person of Interest.
I'd show up
in the first century.
Did you meet Jesus?
We haven't met anyone from.
No, you haven't met him.
Sense.
So that doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay, and I can respect that, but can you respect that I see things very differently?
No, 100%. We see things differently. No, I agree on that. Yeah.
Do you presuppose that I am being irrational?
I don't presuppose it. The evidence that you've given me has shown me that you're being irrational.
Okay, but keep in mind, we're talking about evidence that by your own admission...
That's not evidence, David. You've given me no evidence. Feelings are not evidence. The Bible is not evidence of truth. These are not evidence.
Why is the Bible not evidence?
Because then any fictional book is evidence of those things being true.
It is? That's a non sequitur. Just because one book is accepted by historians universally as being historical
Historians universally accept the resurrection. Holy shit. Oh, no, they don't? Oh,
you're
so I was right. So I was right.
You're strawmanning me.
I'm not. I'm saying a statement, David, and you're saying something completely different.
No. I never said historians accept the resurrection. I said historians, as far as I'm aware, universally accept the Bible as
that would be part of the Bible.
As historical evidence.
David, is the resurrection part of the Bible?
Agreeing they are historical evidence.
Would you think that would be historical evidence? Yes. No. All scholars don't believe that to be historical evidence. Why do you keep saying things like that? That's very weird.
Because I'm not. You're changing what I'm saying.
But you just said it.
No. What I'm saying is they accept them as historical evidence. That doesn't mean they agree with everything it says. That doesn't mean they agree every part of it is true.
David, that's not how that works.
That's how historians work. I understand you don't read historians, and that's okay if you don't want to read historians, but that's how historians work, is they use historical documents to determine what happened in history.
That's cool. So Saul became Paul, correct?
Actually, that's a misnomer. He never changed his name.
Whatever.
But
is that the same person?
He converted, yes.
Cool. What happened? How did that happen?
According to the documents, he had a supernatural experience with Jesus on the road to Damascus.
You mean Jesus showed up?
According to the documents, yes.
In physical form?
It records light and sound. It doesn't record whether it was a physical body or not. I believe it was based on when it happened, but
light and sound, based on
the testimony is only light and sound.
Yeah, light and sound. Jesus is too bright. Can't see him. So Jesus showed up. Has he showed up for you like that?
No, I don't expect him to.
Why?
Why would he?
Because you have a relationship with him.
Yes, and?
Why would he not show up for you?
He didn't show up for 90% of the first century Christians in the same way. He didn't show up for any of the disciples in the same way that he showed up to Paul.
He did. The hands and the side, he showed up.
Oh, you mean when he was not bright enough so that they could actually see him?
Yeah, when he changed his... Magic.
I mean,
look, I'm a zombie. Come on.
Again, legitimately,
I can change my form to bright or regular.
No, again,
in Revelation, he changes his form to a dead lamb. I love that one.
I want to look at what the accounts actually say.
Yeah, it says they touched him.
Yes, which is different than what happened.
And then Jesus showed up he showed up. Jesus showed up, David.
Yes.
Why hasn't he showed up for us? Are we not good enough?
Why would he need to show up again?
To believe.
You have that standard. Okay, I can respect that you have
I'm destined to hell. There's nothing he can do to save me?
He's given you what you need to know to be saved. It's your
How do you know that?
Accept it or not.
How do you know that?
You've read the gospel. If you've read the Bible, you've read the gospel.
It's garbage. There's a bunch of garbage in there.
If you want to take
so that doesn't convince me at all. God knows that's not going to convince me. Okay. Your God, your loving God that wants to have a relationship with me and doesn't want me to go to hell, knows that me reading the Bible is going to cause harm to our relationship. So God knows exactly what it will take to change me, to save me. And he hasn't done it. Why did he do it for others? Why do you think that is?
God revealed himself to a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Cool. Why not me? Why not the countless other atheists who have no reason to believe?
Like Anthony Flew, who was one of your brightest.
Don't care.
I know.
Ooh, I'm just saying. Why?
No, what
You can
I'm
name a
saying
million
is
names. Bart Ehrman.
You're
him up again.
holding an expectation for him. You're treating him like a genie.
I'm
Like, if he
treating him
doesn't
like
do-
a being that wants to have a relationship with
No.
me. I'm treating him
Okay.
like a loving father that wants to save me from what he's going to do if I don't love him.
But is it loving to demand that he do exactly what you want?
Wow.
Is it?
Wow. Okay, David, I'm gonna flip that back around. My kid's on the edge of a cliff. If he falls, if I don't show up, he's gonna fall. If I show up, I will save him from that cliff. Yahweh doesn't save me from the cliff. I would show up.
Okay.
I would
Now
save.
Now, to make it an appropriate analogy,
I have to kill
you
something.
posted a sign on
Or
there
blood
that
on the
said,
kid.
"Stay away from the cliff." He read it and said, "No, that's going to do harm to me," and so he ignored it.
And so God's just gonna be like, well, screw him. He's done.
No,
God doesn't
God's
come
going to
in?
say, "If you want to do that, do it."
Wow. I would still go save my kid even if he didn't listen to the sign. That's
So
what
you-
sets me
so
apart.
you want him
That's
to-
what makes me more moral than
So
your
you
God.
want him to override your free will.
My free will? David, what's going to happen at the end of time?
You chose to reject it.
What's going to happen?
By your testimony, you've read
What's
the Bible.
going to happen, David?
By your testimony, you've read the Bible. You've read
David,
the
what's
gospel.
going to happen?
You know the story. You're gonna stand before the holy judge of the universe and account for your sins, just
And
like I will.
then what's
The
going to
difference is
happen?
You're going to be held to account for your sins.
And then what's going to happen? I love
You're
this.
going
This
to be
is so
punished for
fun.
your sins.
I love this. Is it eternal? Is it going to be fire?
I'm not sure. I'm kind of wavering between the standard eternal conscious torment and conditionalism.
So do you think I'm just going to be allowed to exist forever on a beach somewhere without being tormented or tortured?
Why would you be in the presence of good if you reject good?
Oh, no. God's not there. I don't see him as good. I reject God. That
But the beach would be good.
child-killing monster in the Bible? No. I wouldn't want to be around him.
But the beach would be
And
good.
he knows. And he knows that. And he knows that. He can change that by changing, my thoughts, by giving me actual
So by
evidence to
changing your
to
free will.
believe. Actual evidence to believe.
So by changing
Something
your
that-
free will.
Jesus Christ. Then he changed the free will of Saul by showing up.
No.
Holy shitter, man.
He showed up before Saul, and Saul made the decision.
Never showed up, David. He never showed up. That'd be really great. If I'm a loving father, I'm going to show
I
up.
agree. It would be great if he
I'm-
did, but that doesn't mean he hasn't given you the message.
David, if he gives
You-
me a shitty message, knowing it's a shitty message and that I'm not going to believe it, why would he give me a shitty message?
You came to the predetermined outcome.
No.
that it's a bad
No,
message. So
no,
many
no,
other
David, you're
people
forgetting
who
that your
study
God
the
knows
history-
everything. You're forgetting your God knows everything, David.
He does.
Right. So giving me a shitty message on purpose
You're assuming
doesn't
it's a
add
bad
up.
message.
He
You're
knew.
assuming it's a bad message.
Shit, David. Clearly, it's a bad message. Clearly.
By
Tethered in
your
reality. We all
conclusion.
live in reality where I'm an agnostic atheist. Clearly,
And
the message.
so many scholars that
sucked.
you reject say your conclusion is wrong.
I don't give a fuck what they say,
I know.
David.
I know.
I have
but
my own
again,
opinion and my
that-
own beliefs.
I know.
They have their own opinion and
But
their own
here's the
beliefs.
thing.
I can
You're
call
not
myself whatever
saying-
the fuck I want.
I know, but you're not saying I don't like his message. You're saying it is objectively a bad message.
Yes.
If it is so objectively
Slaughtering
a bad
children.
message, why do
Yes.
smarter people than either of us
They-
say it's not?
Nobody is saying that God's message of jealousy and slaughtering children and bloodshed for forgiveness is a good thing. Not a fucking one, David.
You
Not
haven't
a
read
fucking
them.
one. You're telling me that the slaughtering of innocents is a good thing by atheist standards from these scholars? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it would be great
So no, it's not.
if
it's
you
not.
did research.
It's not what you're
I,
saying.
I think that would be great. That's
Holy
what I do. That's what I like
crap.
to do. That's what I want to do.
I love research.
Because
Let's do
I'm an
research.
apologist. I need to look for the evidence. I need to look at the
Excuse.
reasons. I need to look through that.
David,
That's
this
what
has
I
been
do.
So much
If
fun.
you don't want to do that research, I mean, obviously I can't force you to. I can recommend you resources. I can recommend you where to look for it. I can recommend you what to do. It's your choice whether you want to do it or not.
you should probably, here's the thing. Let's do this. We're going to end it. Thank you so much for your
Okay.
time. I appreciate everything. You've been awesome. You put up with all my,
That's
whatever it
actually
is.
before you end it, I do want to say
Yeah.
that is one reason why I actually said yes.
Oh,
Is because as harsh as you are on the beliefs, you actually respect the people. You get frustrated, don't get me wrong, you know, but you actually respect, like, these are human people. You're not just, degrading me and insulting me and ridiculing me. You hate the beliefs, but you actually respect the people. That's one of the reasons why I actually decided, I'll do this.
thank you.
Is
Sir.
because you hold that balance, and I appreciate that.
I try. I do try. I go with the whole the hate the sinner, love the sinner thing. I hate the religion, hate the but I love the people. People, you guys are deep down, you're good people. I know it. You just worship a documented child killer, and it's so weird to me. It's so weird, and that's your source of morals. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. Thank you so much. I forgot what I was going to close out with now at this point, but
Sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. It was good. That was better probably. Anyways, so thanks for time. We'll do this again sometime. I really want to I'd love to do some Bible study with you, man. That'd be fun.
Yeah, no, legit. Let's do it.
Awesome.
I'll message you.
Yeah.
Let's not continue the recording. I'll message you about it.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Stay safe, Pastor.
Bye.
And that's all the show there is for you today. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and want to help keep the recording light on, simply go to patreon.com/BSW the podcast and sign up to be a supporter of the show. Your episodic tithes of $1 or more will give you access to the patron feed, unaired conversations, early access to each episode, and much more. For the latest events, BSW swag, and a peek behind the scenes, head on over to the show's ever-evolving webpage at thebiblesayswhat.com. The Bible Says What the book is out. Head on over to thebiblesayswhat.com and get yourself and your grandma a signed copy. Thanks to the cosmic powers of the internet, it is now possible to buy me a beer or coffee online. Simply go to buymeacoffee.com/BSW the podcast and click the appropriate buttons. If you can't support the show monetarily, please like, share, and or leave a review. As always, you can find me at the Bible Says What Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram pages. You can also reach me at bswthepodcast@gmail.com. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly pick up your Bibles and read them? Ruler of the planet. Reality directly opposes the idea that Satan is an egotistical supervillain. Satan is very rarely blamed or credited for any of the countless heinous... Fuck COVID. From in the beginning to the musical apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What. I'm your host, Mike.